Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead in video 3 on modern homestead gardening and becoming more self-sufficient. We're going to basically, I'll just show you real quick how things are growing from video number 2. Hopefully you got some plants in, you like it, you're enjoying it, but we're going to take a look at the herbs and the different plants. And then I'm going to show you different options for expanding your footprint in your garden. Maybe you're going to do containers or flower boxes or something like that. Maybe raised beds. We'll go over all of them. It's October. Now's a great time to start planning what you want to do come spring. I'm also going to show you some ways I use plants in the landscape to kind of build an edible landscape, not strictly in garden places, but throughout the property. So in video 2, we put some lettuces and different herbs into containers. You can see that lettuces will grow nicely in flower boxes. You just have to keep them watered. That's a fig plant in that pot back there. Eventually that will need to be potted up into something larger. For whatever reason, the kale plants in here have been struggling a little bit. That might have been the container mix that I used in here, how I basically set it up. Growing better here. Whenever you see yellowing, that's sometimes a sign you need more nitrogen. And when we get to my bean plants, you can see maybe I was a little lax on getting the fish emulsion in there. Because we were growing out of the summer into the fall, some days got really hot, and when it gets warm, your lettuces bolt. They send up this big stalk and they want to flower and set seeds, so the leaves change in flavor. They actually become a little bit more bitter. But now, come October, what I'll do is I'll just cut this off here. It will send up new leaves, and they're going to be delicious and sweet, and they'll keep going because remember, the leafy greens can often take a frost. The peas, doing really well. I don't know if I planted them in video 2, but I put them in one of my videos, and you can see we've got different varieties. Some that have pink purple flowers, some that have white flowers, but they're starting to produce. The collards and greens are doing really well in this container. There's the mint, it's taking off. Now this should be nice and dark green, so the beans, yeah, they're forming, they're delicious, but that just tells me, hey, I need some more nitrogen in there. You can see I let the lettuce go. I'm actually going to collect the seeds for this, so I'm going to let it flower. But again, if you're coming from the spring into the summer, when it gets warm, they're going to bolt. And if you plant in the later summer to get into fall, sometimes the warm weather will have your lettuces take off and just, you know, send out these massive stems. You can still eat the leaves. They're a little bit bitter, but that's up to you. The tomato is dying off, more greens coming in, and here's some of the herb pots. I mean, they're all just filling in nicely. So one option, as you learn about and build your own homestead, you may just start with a couple of containers and kind of learn how to get plants growing. That's perfectly fine. All right, let's walk over to a place where I'm growing strawberries as a ground cover. So I just moved more strawberry plants into here. This space is struggling a little bit, and I think maybe because it gets really wet, the runoff from the house goes right into that space where the rocks are. Some of the strawberry plants made it, you can see the dark ones, but I've repopulated this space with strawberries. But right over here, not too far away, and the ones that we're leaving were planted at the same exact time as these plants. These are all my strawberries that I'm using as ground cover. And mixed in there for bushes, they're blueberries. So you can mix in strawberries for ground cover, some fruiting bushes, blueberries in this case, and it's absolutely beautiful. These strawberries took over this space. They will expand out, cover even more, but I will get, you know, pints and pints of strawberries. Now, they propagate or they reproduce really easily, so they're going to spread. They've all spread into there. So you don't have to spend a fortune and buy like 200 plants. You can start with 25 and you can see how they creep out. And as they kind of creep out, you can move them back to where you want them. So some options you have, that's a 4x4 square space right in there, framed bed. And the tomato plants are beat up because it's almost the middle of October. But there's 4 tomato plants in there, 3 pepper plants, and that's perfect if you want to get started. You could just have peppers and tomatoes. It doesn't take up a lot of space. This is a 4x8 space. The kale, the Swiss chard's doing really well. This will be something I can harvest over the next 60 days. It will also come back in the spring. I'll be able to eat the flowers and the buds. This is purple cabbage. Not sure if that's going to make it, but I'll be eating the leaves. So this space, 4x8, is a perfect kale, collards, leafy green garden, and it's absolutely delicious. There's a big difference between the lettuces and the kales in texture, in vitamins, and in flavor. So here are some strawberries that are dying out. This is actually where I got all my extra strawberry plants. They all filled in this space, so I kind of pulled them back. They're going to die back, look a little beat up in the winter, but they come back. They're really hardy. So this has to get weeded out, but I just dropped this in. You could do something like this. Just get a higher raised bed, 17 inches, fill it up, and you can garden out of here to get started. You don't have to have that thought that you need acreage and you need to go off the grid and all that stuff. Just start small, learn the skills. So in here are strawberries. These are blackberries. Actually, that was a surprise they came up, but I'm gonna have tons of delicious blackberries come next year. I'm also growing, that is lovage back there. It's an herb, perennial, comes back year after year, kind of tastes like celery. Up in this container, those are all herbs, and it's right by my back door so that I can come out here. This is my kitchen area. So there's a lot of designs you can use just to get started based on space. All right, let's walk out to the bigger garden. So if you want to get some ideas in container size, this is a half whiskey barrel. I think they're about 30 gallons. There are 4 plants in there, 2 collards, 2 kales. This is a 17-gallon container that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's. Lots of stuff planted in there. The biggest thing with containers is that they dry out quickly. So you have to keep them not only fed regularly every 14 to 28 days with water-soluble fertilizer, you have to make sure you can stay up on the watering. So when in doubt, get a larger container. It helps you with watering when you're getting started. This is about a 10-gallon fabric container right there. And I have 3 different herbs growing in there. Oregano, thyme, chives. They will do really well. So it gives you some idea on the size of the containers. You want to match the size of the container with how big the plant's going to get. When they're tiny, it looks like you can fit in 1,000, but you could put in 10 little tomato plants there, but they're going to get so tall that they're just going to suck the life out of the soil and they're all not going to do well. So you want to imagine how big your plants are going to be when fully mature, when you're figuring out what size container to put them in. And we'll talk more about that in future videos if you want to subscribe. So on the inside of the fence in my front lawn, there are 3 pear trees. These have been in the ground for 2 years. They're older trees. I bought them, I think, when they were 3 or 4 years old. I added a 3rd one back there, but you can drop in the dwarf trees, any kind of fruit tree that'll fit into your zone, and you can get fruit off of them. Although it's October, this pear tree is producing some fruit, which I don't think obviously will make it. But it takes, if you put in trees that are about 3 or 4 years old, it takes 2 to 3 years for them to establish and start really producing fruit. But don't be afraid to use fruit trees as part of your edible landscape. So before we get over to the main garden, I just wanted to show you my space here. This is where I have plants for pollinators, flowers, bushes. And right on that stump last year for Halloween, about this time, I had a pumpkin. It fell over, decayed, and this beautiful pumpkin plant grew out of there late, like towards the end of July, if not the beginning of August. But, you know, and this is nature at its finest. You don't have to dedicate a lot of space for a pumpkin plant. You can kind of work it into maybe a flower planting bed. The leaves will cover the mulch, help keep moisture in, and the plant's doing really well. Popping up right out of here is an apple tree. And look, it's just a beautiful pumpkin forming, and I think it'll make it before the frost comes here. So that's pretty cool. But you can kind of think out of the box a little bit and combine flowers and edibles, fruits, vegetables into a single space. The pumpkin, of course, stays low. You grow bigger plants above it. Over on this side, this is in transition. This trench here, I'm obviously trenching out, but that extra dirt goes to fill up my raised beds that I'm adding in there. It's a nice way to save money. What I wanted to show you, this is, you know, I could have cleaned it all up and mulched it, but I don't want to give you the idea that gardening is easy, everything should look perfect. It's not. So this is kind of low on the priority list. Eventually it'll get weeded, mulched down. But I wanted to show you the Goji Berry. This was a single stem $9 plant I bought at Home Depot 2 years ago, and it's starting to fill in this space. It's actually, I thought it was a bush. I didn't even know really how it grew, but it will turn into a tree, so it has to be pruned to be maintained. But you get all these beautiful orange goji berries on there. Not super sweet or delicious by themselves, but they're just packed full of nutrition and vitamins for you. So it's really good to add those kind of fruits onto your homestead. And these are just fit in right in here along the fence. You can see how large this one's getting. This is a 2-year plant. So this is the second growing season, and it started as just a little stem that I rooted and grew in a house until spring 2 years ago. You know, so it's gonna have to be pruned, but you can go ahead and drop in edibles like that along a fence line, wherever you want, and just kind of grow that way. All right, now let's get to the garden. So this is outside my fence. You know, I have to fence in everything or deer will get in there. These are 12-inch galvanized metal raised beds, probably 6 feet by 3.5 feet. You can find them online. Growing different things in there. Growing onions, leeks, radishes, things that the rabbits and the deer don't seem to like are being grown outside the area. But this is a space you could set up for your first garden. It's 3 6-foot by 3.5 feet beds. Plenty of space to grow peppers, eggplant, tomatoes, leafy greens, all kinds of different things. This is just and I have a video on it if you want to check out my channel, on just kind of creating a circle, penning it in with chicken wire to keep the rabbits out. And there are 2 tomato plants in there and a bunch of pepper plants. And you can see the deer come over here and snack on them. Now, I could have raised it up taller, but I didn't. So that's something you're going to learn too. You'll learn about the different pests in your area. But look at all these Tabasco peppers. They're all ready to be picked and to be used. In here, right back there, just real quick, those are leeks. And these are just beautiful radishes. Now, the whole garden's in transition. That's what October's about. That's why we're shooting this video, because it's time for you to really think about what you might want to do. So this is a no-dig garden. I have a video on that. Right now, it's only protected with string and bells. It's keeping the deer away for whatever reason. They're kind of spooked. They should be coming in and chowing down the broccoli rabe. Maybe they will. The no-dig garden, this is about 20 feet by 8 feet. Plenty of room. All that growth in there are tomatoes. I basically let tomatoes vine all over here. Now they've reseeded. But I have broccoli rabe. That's asparagus back there. Radishes. In the front are some kohlrabi. That's an artichoke. Those are herbs in there. But you can set up something like this. And no dig is really cool because we just put down 4 to 6 inches of compost, cardboard under there, and we planted right in it. This bed's only 1 year old. It's going to get better and better. This is a cold frame. Maybe you're in a colder area. I built this myself. And you just want to angle it, face it towards the sun. That's the polycarbonate you can pick up at like Home Depot or Lowe's, and that will just pull over here. So when it's freezing outside, stays warm in here, and I'll be able to harvest out of this the whole year. You know, and that's something maybe you build down the line as you get more experience. So here's the garden in complete transition. These were all containers. But I had containers here, over there, over there. One tip is if you're going to do a container garden, put them all in one place so that they're easy to water. So on this side, this is great for a larger family. These metal raised beds are single pieces. They're a little bit pricey. They don't have bottoms. Over there are 3 fire rings. Just drop them, fill them up with the appropriate soil, and you can grow in here. There's broccoli. That's actually ginger. That's bok choy. Peas are growing back there. Rhubarb in the far left corner. More radishes. This tomato plant is going really strong. I let it go. I pulled out most of my tomato plants, but I wanted to see what this one would do, and it's going crazy. You don't have to dedicate a lot of space to have a garden that feeds a family of 4. So this is just one option right here. So again, middle of October, and the reason I'm saying this is a warm weather crop. They love the warm weather. Same with the plants that are dying out back there, zucchini and squash. This is powdery mildew, in case you're ever wondering what that is. Typically, I treat that, but this is going to die out soon from the frost. But I planted this late, and you can see a massive zucchini in there that I'm letting grow. I'm going to collect seeds from it, and then a smaller one that I'll harvest. So you can keep your plants going well from frost to frost. Even though we're in October, these crops were planted later in August, and they're still producing. This is just a mounded bed. You don't need any fancy raised beds or siding or anything like that. You can just mound up, you know, maybe a 3-foot space. That is cauliflower, I believe, or broccoli. And you can just plant along there. Those are scallop squash that are finishing up. That's a round zucchini finishing up. But you could just put a single row in just like this as long as you want and plant in it. You don't need anything fancy. It also extends right over to here. These are some green beans. Set up some trellising. We'll talk more about trellising if you want to subscribe in the next video or so. But you can grow cantaloupe up here. You can grow bush green beans. So you can set up your mounded bed with a piece of cattle panel, and you can grow vertically right up there. Now here are some other standard beds. That's 4x8. The reason you want everything to be about 4 feet is that your arms are 2 feet, so you can walk around it and reach in and tend without stepping into soil. Nice arch right there. This is all arugula, a great cool season crop for the fall. And you can see that right down the middle I have framed beds. They are raised beds, but I kind of technically now say a raised bed is really 10-12 inches or taller. Frame beds are smaller. The principle is the same, but the quantity of dirt and stuff you need to fill it, soil, is different. Now finally, you know, coming down here, this is where I'm transitioning all the containers that were behind me. You know, those are for flowers. Oh, there's a squirrel. Those are for flowers, and that's a little bug hotel for good bugs. But I'm trying to maintain all the container plants from the main garden. You know, you just saw the one up by my house, in one space, so that I can just get in here and water. That's bone meal on top of there. That's all going to be washed in. These are all getting set up for the fall. Nothing's really growing in them. So these will all be ready come spring for planting. This whole section, blueberry plants, containers, and I will just rotate different things in there. This is how I'm growing the erect blackberries. They're all staying right in that space. They do travel. I don't know if this one really traveled or reseeded itself right there, but they expand really, really slowly from the initial footprint of where they're planted, and that's what you want. If not, they're going to just scatter everywhere and they're a pain. Those are hops vines that are going to be changed up for next year. This is where, again, I'm mixing in all of my containers. This section is a nice raised bed. You can see hot peppers are still coming in, some tomatoes over there, eggplant in there. This is a 4x8. These are going to get pulled out, and I'm going to put in some metal raised beds that are 17 inches in here and just maximize the space more. If you need to, you could build a little wood deck or a little platform, and you can drop containers on there. So these are vertical towers. You can pick these up and grow vertically. These are, or maybe we'll end here today too. These are just loaded with leafy greens, and in a little 3-foot by 3-foot footprint, 6 tiers, I can come and harvest, you know, full bowls of lettuce and have salads out of here. That's my herb pot. I just dropped in some more leafy greens. But there are a lot of ways that you can start your dream to have a homestead. You don't need something large like this. This is totally overwhelming if you're just getting started. I mean, we didn't even go over to that side. That's a hedge of asparagus. If you see those black containers, that's just a straight row of black containers that I plant in, and those are filled with pepper plants. You don't have to start with something this large. Just pick out some of these ideas, find a space on your deck, back door, go to friends, neighbors, family, talk to them about, you know, building a garden. If they have land, you'll share the produce with them. But plants want to grow. Look at the beans that, you know, are still growing on this collapsing, you know, mess of corn. All these green beans are ready to be picked. Hope you enjoyed the video. Gives you some ideas of how you may expand your gardens come spring next year. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. This will be an ongoing series. And please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com for all your seeds and seed starting supplies.